Hey there, my name is Jasmine Sky, and I am here today with another fun, easy video because things are not so hot here in Texas, literally. So we are here cold. Many people are out of power. We're out of water. I'm almost out of food. It's not great and it's not easy, but I was one of the lucky ones because I live near a hospital that I never lost power. So I'm gonna count my blessings and film this video to distract myself from everything that's going on. So today we are going to be tier ranking again because I had a lot of fun with the previous tier ranking video, which was my tier ranking romance tropes that I did for Valentine's Day. So I'm gonna link that down below if you're interested. This is another tier ranking. This is a more general tropes list. This is tropes across all genres, so you're gonna get a taste of my favorite tropes for everything and my least favorite tropes for everything, because I've glanced at this list and there are some that I have strong opinions on. So that's what we're doing today. And if you want to do this tier ranking as well, I will put this specific list also in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead, dive right in and see what these tropes are. So first off, I'm gonna scroll down just a little bit. These are not my categories. These were the categories that already existed for this tier list, but I quite like them, so I'm gonna just keep them instead of making the same ones I did for my romance trope list. So the top category is Put It In My Eyeballs, which is the category of all-time favorite tropes, 100% must buy, always want it tropes. Then the second on the list is, yep, I'm into it, tropes that 95% of the time I am just super into and love it. And then there's Good as a Mix-In. I really like this category because this is the category of tropes where they're not total favorites, but they are tropes that I enjoy having as part of a novel. So that's good. And then there's the execution dependent tropes, which is another great category for the ones where it really depends on how the author went about it. And then we have hard sell, which, you know, self-explanatory. It's hard. It's got to be executed really well for me to enjoy it. And then finally, hot water trash, the never likes. That is what we have going on. This trope list has a combination of romance, fantasy, sci-fi, and thriller tropes. So it's basically tropes across all speculative genres. So yeah, we're gonna see. I do not read thrillers by themselves very often, if ever, but I do enjoy mysteries. So a lot of thriller tropes and mystery tropes are similar. They just are executed slightly differently. And sci-fi fantasy is my bread and butter. And romance, well, I already did romance tropes, but maybe these have slightly different ones. Or, you know, maybe some of my tier rankings will change slightly when seen against all of these other tropes. Who knows? I kind of doubt it. But the actual rankings are laid out differently in this one, so that might change things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. The first trope is snowed in, which is typically either a romance trope or like a mystery thriller trope. So it's either a way to trap people in with a killer or a way to trap people together to get them to get romantically closer to each other. It's fine. I would say it is good as a mix-in. I don't mind it. I like it when other stuff is going on. Next we have isolated closed circles. I also like this as a mix-in. It's not something that I immediately point to and say like this is a favorite trope, but when it's part of a story, often this kind of trope is part of other tropes that I enjoy. Like for instance, I don't know if small town is on this list, but I do like, oh, in fact, I see it down here, small town secrets. We'll get to there when we get to there. oh, you know what, we'll go ahead and do it. Small town secrets, I think, yep, I'm into it. And these can be very similar. The other thing I like about isolated closed circles are when it's like codependent friend groups. I really, really like that. So yeah, I think that all relates. Next on the list is cults. Execution dependent. I am weary of cults because I feel like they're overdone, but they can be fun. I think I'd love to see more cults in like sci-fi fantasy. I'm really not into them in a contemporary setting, but with other secondary world, whether it's a sci-fi secondary world or a fantasy secondary world, I think they can be done very interestingly. Next is fake dating. Put it in my eyeballs. I already talked about that with my romance tropes list, as well as marriage of convenience, two of my favorite tropes. Absolutely adore them. Next we have Slowburn Romance, which I talked about in my romance tropes video. I'm gonna say that a lot for the romance tropes, so sorry about that. But yes, Slowburn Romance, it's execution dependent, or yeah, I guess it's execution dependent because as I talked about previously, I really like slow burn and I like a good amount of pining in a story. But if it goes on too long, or it's only being kept as slow burn because of convenience, like plot convenience things that don't really make sense, then I don't like it anymore. So there needs to be a really good solid reason for the slow burn. It can't just be that the characters aren't talking to each other when they should be, that kind of thing. So execution dependent. Love triangle, hard sell. So in my romance tropes video, I said I only like love triangles if it ends up in a threesome, throuple, polyamorous relationship. But I did think about the other time I like love triangles is when there is some sort of plot twist to do with the love triangle. So if it's a love triangle wherein one part of the love triangle turns out to be the antagonist, I like that, like the secret villain. Or if it's a love triangle where the person in the center of the triangle doesn't get with either of them, I would like that too. Like anything that's an inversion of the love triangle trope, whether it is all three getting together or someone ends up being the villain or not getting with either of them, like all of that is fine. I just don't like the typical love triangle. Next on the list is Chosen One, and I do like Chosen One stories. Even straightforward Chosen One stories, I enjoy, especially if there's other things I enjoy about the story, and Chosen One inversions or ones that play with Chosen One in interesting ways, I really love. So we'll say good as a mix-in because a typical straightforward Chosen One, I just like. It's fine. Only One Bed, I really, really like this one. I just think it's so much fun to force domesticity in any sort of romance. That's just, that's why I love marriage of convenience and fake dating as well. All of these force your couple to engage in domestic situations before they realize they want to, and by experimenting with the domestic situations as part of whatever is going on, they realize they like it. And I just love that in romance so much. Next we have Locked Room Mysteries. I really enjoy Locked Room Mysteries. We'll say good as a mix-in, I think, or yep, I'm into it. I think yep, I'm into it. I really do enjoy Locked Room Mysteries. I love any mystery where I, as the reader, am given a chance to figure it out. Next is Secret Baby. This is an interesting trope. In a romance, I feel like would be very interesting. I wonder if this is a typical thriller trope. I don't really know many stories that have a secret baby. I guess if we include like secret heir in this trope, like there's, you know, a secret lost heir to the throne, I don't think that's what this is referring to at all. But those I've read way more than secret baby because I don't know. So good as a mix-in. I don't really have strong feelings about it, but I think that any type of secret that gets revealed in the course of a story tends to be fun. I like a good plot twist, so there you go. Siblings best friend. This is another romance trope that I said was fine. We're gonna call it execution dependent, because what I don't like about siblings best friend or best friend sibling, either or, is when the friendship or the familial relationship is like harmed because of it. I don't like that. Next is Gods Walk Among Us. I like this one a lot. I love Living Gods. It's not a put it in my eyeballs, but it's close. I tend to be very, very into living gods in fantasy. So, fated mates, soulmate stories, love it. Love anything like that. That is a big yes for me in romance. Danger boner. I think that is referring to people who are reckless or get off on danger. I've never heard that term before, but okay, danger boner. I think I'm gonna say that's execution dependent. Yeah. Police procedurals, I actually quite enjoy. I know a lot of people don't, but I'm gonna say good as a mix-in. There needs to be other stuff going on in the mystery that, you know, I'm into, but I do enjoy reading from the point of view of detectives. That is something that I do like in general, seeing that point of view and seeing sort of the behind the scenes procedures and the things that get in the way of finding out what's happening. I like all of that. Next we have POV/timeline trickery. It's execution dependent. In general, I don't love dual timeline stuff, which might be on this list later. It depends on how it's done. It's not my favorite. Next up, we have mental illness as a trope. This is, I don't like this. The only exception to this are own voices stories, where they are about main characters with whatever type of mental illness. I've read a lot of really good own voices, anxiety rep, for instance, and about those characters having to handle their mental illness. So yeah, that's the only time I enjoy mental illness as a trope. But typically, I think this is referring to the fact that like there's so much mental illness as sort of the antagonist motivation in mystery thrillers, for instance, and that is just not okay. I'm not into that. So next we have secrets from the past. This is execution dependent. I said I really like secrets and I like a good plot twist, but sometimes secrets from the past can be tricky, especially when it's something that you feel like should have already been revealed or should have already come up, and it's only coming up in the climax for plot convenience. So when that's the case, you know, when the execution fails, then I don't like it. When the execution does not fail, I love a good plot twist related to secrets of any kind. Same with Secret Baby, right? So yeah, we'll put that in execution dependent. But these two are kind of interchangeable to me, to be honest. Next we have Return to Hometown. I really do like this. I like stories that talk about how people change as they grow and experience new things, and also deal with nostalgia. I do think that is a fun thing to mix in, but there has to be other stuff going on that I'm interested in. It can't all be about that. Next we have Amnesia. This is, I don't remember what I did for romance. I think I put it in like a low category for the romance tropes video. It's true I don't love it in romance, though sometimes it can be well done, but sometimes I really don't like it. It really depends on execution, especially in mysteries. It can be hit or miss, I think. So execution dependent. Next we have podcast/investigative journalist. I have never been super into podcasts, though I do like multimedia stories in general, and I have already said that I do like characters who are detectives by choice. We're gonna call this good as a mix-in. I think I put this in the same category as police procedural. Next is dual timeline. Execution dependent. Actually, I'm not even gonna say that. I'm gonna say dual timeline is a hard sell. I will say most of the time, I don't like dual timeline. I just struggle with it in most stories. The few stories, in fact, the one story off the top of my head that I can think of where by the end of it, I was fine is Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. But there's a reason that Ancillary Justice, the first book of the trilogy, is my least favorite book of the trilogy, and that's because it had a dual timeline and the other two did not. And everything else going on with that story, I loved a lot, so it still ended up being a favorite book despite the dual timeline. But the other two, which had all the other stuff that I loved and weren't dual timeline, were like even more favorites. So yeah, hard sell. Dual timeline, like there has to be a lot of other tropes going on that I adore for me to pick up a dual timeline book if I know it's dual timeline. But Ancillary Justice is an example to show that there are hard sell tropes that, even though it was a hard sell, it did end up going through. Next is Don't Trust Your Husband. This is a thriller trope that I don't particularly care for. Not that I read many thrillers, but in general, I prefer stories if they center an established relationship. I prefer them to showcase healthy, established relationships because I feel like we have so many examples of unhealthy relationships in entertainment media and not enough examples of healthy marriages, healthy, long-standing relationships of any kind, not even romantic. So I tend to prefer those, and I tend for the conflict to be external, not be internal in relationships. Again, same thing. In fact, I'm gonna even put this one in hot water trash. I really don't like infidelity in stories. Yeah, no, it's not. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. And same with trans twist. So not a fan. So not a fan because this posits someone being trans as the antagonist often in thrillers, and that is just, this is a very problematic trope that has hurt a lot of people in the trans community, continues to cause negative assumptions about trans individuals. It's not okay. It's not okay, and I don't like it. Bury Your Gays, similarly, not okay, and I don't like it. There's so much harm is done to the LGBTQIA plus community. Gay villain, same thing, not okay, I don't like it. I fully 100% believe at some point we can come back to these tropes. Like, in a story with a lot of queer characters, if some of them have to die because there's just what most of the cast is, and some people have to die, like, fine. In stories with lots of queer characters and queer heroes, if the villain just so also happens to be queer, fine. I can't think of a time when a trans twist is fine, but maybe it could be executed fine. But only, same with mental illness, right? Only in Own Voices stories, and it's even in Own Voices stories. I just personally will never write this if possible. I may kill off a queer character in some book, in multiple books, because so much of my cast tends to be queer, that inevitably if I have to have deaths, they might be queer, but I try very, very hard to be very cognizant of who I'm killing off, what happy endings I am destroying by killing characters off, because there's been so much harm done by these four tropes that I think we have to be very, very careful. That was my PSA. Moving on, Unreliable Narrator, execution dependent. It can be good. I like it a lot. I think in SFF, and romance. I really, really love stories where your main character makes assumptions about what's going on or about other characters, and those assumptions turn out to be wrong, and there's some plot twist reveals around that as part of the plot of a science fiction, fantasy, or romance. I do love that. I think it's a little overdone in mystery thriller, but I'm not completely against it either. It depends on how it's executed. So, maybe I'll even put this as good as a mix-in, because I do tend to like it. Yeah. Workplace romance. It's a hard sell, though to be honest, it's a hard sell more because workplace romances tend to be contemporary, office-based stories, and if I'm going to read a contemporary romance, something set in the corporate world is just a hard sell in general. So Grump and Sunshine I quite enjoy as a romance couple trope, especially if the Grump showcases their love for the Sunshine character even through their grumpiness. If it's too one-sided feeling, then I don't like it, but most of the time the Grump and Sunshine romance trope is a lot of fun. Kick-ass heroine, I am into it. I always love a good, strong female character, and I don't know, what else can I say? That's just true. Noir detective. It's execution dependent, but more because noir detective implies a historical fiction mystery, and I don't love that. I don't love historical fiction set in the 20th century. That's just something about me. I will probably never write anything set in the 20th century because I don't know, it's never interested me. Never got into Great Gatsby or the Roaring 20s. They really don't fascinate me. Not really into the 50s, 60s housewife thing, even like a twist on the housewife thing. I'm not that interested. Not really interested in the 70s, 80s. I'm not interested in the 20th century. So if it's a noir detective and it's set, therefore, in the 20th century, not interested. But the reason I put it in actually, you know what? I'm going to put it in hard sell. But it's not a hot water trash because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If it's set not in the 20th century, but it has the feel of a noir detective in the sense that it is like that gritty type of detective, I'm still not as into that. I don't mind main characters who start in a bad place mentally and part of the story is them coming out the other side, but characters who are just disgusted with life or like always pessimistic are really, really hard for me to read from the point of view of. Next we have edgelord main character. This is probably execution dependent. I don't think I like this, the way it's executed a lot, especially if it falls into I'm not like the other girls trope, which I saw on this list later. I'm not into that trope. We'll go ahead and pull it out because I think this relates. I am really not into not like the other girls, not into narratives that posit that women have to compete against each other for attention, and that's what the not like the other girls trope implies. And yeah, I'm not into that. So when an edgelord main character falls into that trope, not into it. But if, it's just that they are edgy in other ways, like I'm not against it necessarily. So yeah, it depends on execution. Next we have morally gray main character. I do love a good morally gray main character as a mix-in, but again, there has to be other stuff going on because I don't like gritty stories very often. So if it's a morally gray character in a super gritty world, that's a hard sell for me. But if it's a morally gray character who's like a kick-ass heroine, then that's like a much easier sell for me, that kind of thing. Redeemed villains. I'm into redeemed villains, especially when the narrative puts in the work. Like Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender it put in the work to redeem him, but some of the best emotional climaxes come from redeemed villains where that work was put in. So I'm into it. I don't like it when it's cheap, when it's too easy, because if they were a villain, they were a villain and they need to confront their villainy. So, creepy kids. This is like a horror trope. It's a hard sell because I don't like horror. I really, really struggle with horror. So, anything that is horror-y is a hard sell. Next we have found family. I am into found family. I really enjoy found family, and just, you know, it's wholesome. Sometimes it's not wholesome, but codependent friendships, I already mentioned, I really, really love, and that's often what found family is, are very codependent friendships. Road trip / quest stories are good as a mix-in. I tend to enjoy a good quest, tend to enjoy a good travel in a narrative. So yes, we're gonna say that. Next we have magic school. I am into magic schools. I really, really love magic schools. You know what? I'm even gonna put it in my eyeballs because magic schools are almost an auto buy for me. There has to be other tropes that I know I won't like for me to not auto buy a magic school story. Next is medieval fantasy world. This is my bread and butter. This is kind of funny to put it in my eyeballs because like I don't auto buy all medieval fantasy worlds. It's a little too broad of a category for that, but it is 100% my fallback when I'm writing, when I'm reading, when I want some escapism. Anything that is medieval fantasy-esque is where I always fall back on. So yeah, it is my favorite, 100%. Friends to lovers, I am into it. I do very much enjoy a good friends to lovers romance. MacGuffin, will say good as a mix-in. I think that's true. Here comes the cavalry. I am into those moments, especially when they've been set up in the narrative. I don't like them when they feel like plot convenience. But for instance, in Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, it's, you know, look for me as the sun rises on the third day, I think is what it is. And then the cavalry comes in with the Riders of Rohan, which had been set up the entire movie. That's the kind of here comes the cavalry moments that I adore. Morality chain. I don't actually know what morality chain refers to. So we're gonna put it in execution dependent because I don't know. Secret Heir. Okay, this is interesting. So this must be different from Secret Baby. I think Secret Baby is, again, I think it's either a romance or a thriller trope. If it's a romance trope, I like it, which is why it's good as a mix-in. If it's a thriller trope, or a mystery trope, I think it's still good as a mix-in. Secret Heir, however, I am into it. Set up right. I do enjoy Secret Heirs, and I enjoy Secret Heirs especially a lot. Like an auto buy for me tends to be books where there is an heir to something that is being hunted down, and the plot of the book is around keeping the heir alive so they can fulfill their destiny. Love that. Time travel, execution dependent. Yeah, execution dependent. Some time travels are some of my favorite stories ever. Some of them, not so much. Depends on the way that they're time traveling. Political dystopia is a really hard sell. It's too real. I have a really hard time with anything dystopic, which is the same with biological dystopias. I have a hard time. It is a hard sell. Now, if it is a post-apocalyptic story, but the actual feel of the post-apocalypse isn't dystopic, then I will be into it. So biological dystopia, like some of those don't feel dystopic, then that's good. Then that's fun because it's kind of like a secondary world. But anything actually dystopic, I do not like. Next, we have Mail Order Bride. I'm into it. I actually really do like this. I'm gonna put it down here. I do like this as a romance trope, especially when it confronts, when it either is set in a world where mail order brides are like less problematic than they are in real life, or it confronts the issues of mail order brides but still has that fun romantic forced domesticity that's like involved with like arranged marriage stories and marriages of convenience and all of that, because a mail order bride story is often a marriage of convenience. So I really enjoy it, but I am not putting it in my eyeballs because there are inherent problems with mail order stuff and, you know, human trafficking and slavery. So that's why it's not a put it in my eyeballs. Space Frontier. It's execution dependent. I love Star Trek. I do love space exploration, but where the plot is very episodic, it depends. It depends. Next we have military sci-fi fantasy. Put it in my eyeballs. I love military sci-fi fantasy. Adore it. This is an auto buy, honestly. I love military fiction. Next, we've got enemies to lovers, same as friends to lovers. I really enjoy it. It's not a put it in my eyeballs, because there can be other things. I need other things in the story to like really hit it home as an auto buy, but I do love it. I do love it. Political intrigue machinations. This is another put it in my eyeballs. This is my favorite type of plot. A good intrigue plot is the best. Spy master characters tend to be my favorite characters, and when you combine intrigue machinations with military sci-fi in like a medieval fantasy world, oh my god, you have the perfect book for me. Like this is my shit. Next we have The Dark Lord. Execution dependent. It can be good, but I generally like antagonists who have more motivation than just they're evil, which is why some Dark Lords are like, whatever. But some are really good. Next, we have cheating with friends / family. No, we're into the infidelity, cheating in general. I'm just, no, negative. Not into cheating. Just really not into it. Next, we have coming of age is a good mix-in. This is the bread and butter of YA, is coming of age, and I love it. I write YA. I read a lot of YA. Yes. And then we have epistolary / diary format. I like epistolary stuff, good as a mix-in. I don't like books that are entirely epistolary as much, but when it is literally mixed in throughout the book, I do enjoy it. Then we have magic / special object. Again, good as a mix-in. Secretly crazy. This is in the same as mental illness trope. It's overdone and it is harmful to many people who actually deal with mental illnesses that are considered crazy. Yeah, it's not okay. I really think we've moved past this as writers. I think we should find other ways to make interesting antagonistic situations than secretly crazy. Next we have fairy tale retellings. Really like fairy tale retellings. I am into them for sure. And then we've got classic retellings. They're execution dependent. I love a good classic retelling if I love the classic. Shakespeare retellings, Jane Austen retellings, if someone did a retelling of the Tale of Genji, like any classic that I enjoyed as the classic, I will enjoy and want to read a retelling of it, but I am not super in love with a lot of classics, so, you know, then I'm not gonna care about the retelling. Next, we've got unlikable main characters. Execution dependent. Yeah, I have a hard time with this. I think I mentioned it earlier, characters who are just super pessimistic about the world and always down or always aggressive. Like I can struggle with them sometimes. It really depends on how the character is executed and the kinds of people they are running up against that they're being aggressive or pessimistic towards. Yeah. I think my favorite unlikable main characters are in like humorous stories. Next is alpha hole. I think this is referring to the romance trope where the like alpha male is an asshole. I think that's what this means. That's a hard sell for me. I don't like asshole romantic interests. I just don't. And this is where Grump and Sunshine can be a problem for me. If the Grump is too much of an asshole, then I don't like it. But if it's not to that extent, then I do. So next is the protective alpha. This is execution dependent. I do love protective love interests a lot, but I do not love protective male love interests with damsel in distress female characters. Yeah. Hate to love. This is similar to enemies to lovers. I'm into it. I'm into it. It's like the same thing to me. So yes. Cinnamon roll heroes, also into it. I like a good cinnamon roll. I find stories where the main character's strength is their kindness to be some of my favorite stories. Yeah. Virgin hero, I don't care. I don't care. Maybe this is good as a mix-in. You know, it's fine. It's fine. Creepy haunted house. It's execution dependent because I don't like horror, but I do like creepy manners as a set piece if it's not too horror scary. Is that a ghost? Good as a mix in. I like ghosts in stories. But again, I don't like scary ghosts because I don't like horror. But if it's a mix-in with a larger magical situation, yes. Country house mysteries. I am into it. This is the times when this creepy house is great, is in like a country house mystery where the house has secrets. I'm very much into that. Yeah. Missing girl. Execution dependent. I really struggle with stories that have trigger warnings towards sexual assault. So if a missing girl story goes into that, I struggle with it. But if it's not that, and it's just in general like a missing person's mystery, I can enjoy that. So serial killer / copycat killer. Yes, I like a good serial killer situation in a mystery or a sci-fi fantasy. That's all fun. Or a romance. I've read a couple serial killer romances. That's all good stuff. Killing in a pattern. Yeah. Again, I mean, this is all related to, you know, mystery tropes. I like being able to figure out the mystery. So if there's a pattern to the killing and the story is set up such that I can try to figure out the pattern before it's revealed by the main character, yes. Meta elements. I am into it. This is related to epistolary, but even better. Like meta elements including, you know, tweets, YouTube comments, you know, videos, like pictures. anything meta, and or that could be what this is referring to, and or the other thing this could be referring to are stories that like break the fourth wall a little bit, or that are very aware of themselves, and I love all of that. I do really enjoy that in stories. Now we have boarding schools. I'm into it. I'm not as into it as I am in magic schools. Like if it's a modern boarding school, like if it's a non-magical or non-special boarding school, I like it, but I don't like it as much. But if it's like a military boarding school, like an assassin boarding school, magical boarding school, anything like that, then it goes into put it in my eyeballs. So, you know, that's yeah, it's I tend to really like special training schools. Training montages, I'm gonna say good as a mix-in. I love it, especially in visual media. I love a good training montage in visual media. It's hard to do a montage in written media, but I think if it was executed well, I'd love it. So yeah. And then finally we have forced proximity. Yes, this is in relation to romance. If it's forced proximity and it's with the romantic couple, put it in my eyeballs. I talked about that already with marriage of convenience, only one bed, fake dating, all of this stuff where the main romantic couple are forced into proximity, forced to interact with each other. Really, really love that in romance. If it is forced proximity with like the killer, and this is like a mystery thriller situation, it's probably more of a good as a mix-in. But I'm gonna talk about this as if it's the romance trope, and then I adore it. So there you go. Those are all of my favorite and least favorite tropes. Now you know. And this was an extremely long video, so if you stuck with me, thanks so much for watching. As always, there are links in my description to causes that need your support. I'm gonna include some new links to help people out here in Texas because it is very, very hard for a lot of people in Texas right now, and anything you can do to support them, us, would be great. So yeah, that's gonna be the top link in my links of causes to support. And as always, you can support my channel by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And I look forward to chatting with y'all in the comments. Please go ahead and let me know if we share any favorite tropes or not, and what you think about some of these. I would like to chat about all of our favorite tropes in the comments below.